This is Kreskin. You know me as the Amazing Kreskin. Through the years, as I've traveled the world, occasionally things happen that are sometimes unexplainable, but sometimes very explainable, but at moments distressing. I'm going to share with you an experience I had just a few weeks ago. It was a private affair in which I was booked. I was there for 2 days at the Salem Paranormal and Horror Convention in Salem, Massachusetts. I love that time of the year. It was a great cause to celebrate the mood and the atmosphere and what have you. And it was an audience, not a public show, but mainly people who were invited. A lot of them knew me through the years and had been coming back and back each year to different performances. This I could not foresee, and I never did foresee it before, and pray that it will never happen again. In all my shows, especially if they're an hour and a half, or 2 hours, I end my performance with this major feature, which all of you are familiar with, and that's the check test. Well, tonight was no exception, and they expected that to be part of my program. I didn't have my check. It hadn't been delivered in time. That's fine. It was a legitimate performance. I knew I was going to be paid and what have you. So instead I decided, well, let me use a watch that's one of my prized possessions. And it's one of those watches that opens with a lid on it and what have you and closes in that way. And this is what I gave them. I said, you're going to hide this anywhere in this entire room, anywhere you wish. And there were like 40, 50 people within the room. It was pretty crowded, lots of people seated all over the place. And I gave this to a committee that was picked by pure chance, a committee that was going to take charge of the challenge to me. The challenge being, of course, that the committee of 4 of them hide my check anywhere in the room, auditorium, outside the theater where there could be thousands of people, or in a situation in which I was. I was then escorted by a 5th person out of the room to an area of the building which I could not hear or see what was going on. And during that time, they were administered and told to hide my check. Not on the 4 of them, but anywhere else, anywhere on any person or place in the entire room. I was called back in. You could hear a pin drop, because what I had to find was this item. And then the nightmare began to take place. I had a very strong urge to go to a certain part of the room. But something was disturbing me, and I walked away. As I walked away, I found that at another angle from the room, there was a similar urge. And I thought, this doesn't make sense. I've never quite had this happen before. So I thought, is this a hunch or a hangover from the impression I had originally? I went back to the original place. It seemed correct, but not that correct. Something was pulling me away. I walked to another end of the room, and that seemed correct, but again, very, very uncertain. Unstable were the impressions I was receiving. And usually, I don't care, I have found objects hidden in cities where the committee has a clear pattern of where it is. I can get a very sharp pattern as I approach the item and become closer to it. But the room and the audience began to become disturbed. I wasn't paying attention to them, but I could hear that by their concern. They knew me well enough, they had seen me work before, that they knew something was wrong. What I could not figure out was, one place seemed correct, and yet when I walked away, I was pulled by a mental impression to another place and felt that certain, that clear that I was there. Well, to be very honest with you, I made up my mind. it reached a point where there were approximately 4 minutes of my search left. I don't know if I've been searching for 8 minutes, 10 minutes, 12 minutes. I don't even remember how much time. But I thought, enough is enough. I can't take this. If I can't find this, I'm going to throw in the towel. And I said, it's 4 minutes from now. I didn't say that out loud. I said that to myself, and I can tell you I was keeping my word. As I roamed through the room and found myself settling in the one area I first came to, I'm standing there and thinking, I've got about 2 minutes left. How am I going to explain this except that I just don't seem to be getting clear impressions? There was a little number, the table had a number of boxes and little containers on it and what have you. I saw this little black box that usually had 5 white marbles and 1 black marble in it. I do a special test with that. But for some reason, without thinking, and I can tell you folks, without thinking, I reached out with my left hand, picked up the box, flipped it open, and here was the watch. Needless to say, the excitement was extreme, and I stopped and said, you know, I've got to explain something to you. As a lot of you know who follow me through the years and have seen dozens of my performances, I was stressed out. I was confused. And after a few minutes of commenting how I felt correct over there, correct over here, a gentleman in the audience interrupted me. I didn't even know he was there. I expected him sooner or later. It was a gentleman who booked me. And he explained something to me that I never want to hear again. And I'm not blaming him for it, but I never want to hear it again. He said, Kreskin, I just want to explain something to you. I was here earlier, and I have your check for tonight, which I know that you didn't expect it to be delivered in time. The only factor is that I hid the check in a phone where you were gravitating to constantly earlier before anyone came in. Forgot to take it away and failed to tell anyone. So folks, we all have unexplained incidents. That's a first in my life. And I will assure you, I will make sure it is the last of that incident. Thought you'd be interested.